everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football presented by BKCW. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined this morning by Jerry Hamilton, and a lot to talk about once again. But first, tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking, and obviously get your questions in, as we'll be answering a lot of those today. Jerry, we're almost down to single digits, man. By the time we're back on Monday, we'll be there, but 11 days till spring football.
Yeah, I mean, next week we'll see the UT equipment Twitter feed putting out a lot of tweets about uniforms, whatnot. We'll have the roster updated next week. Freshman numbers, some of those are already out, but updated heights and weights, all the things people love to talk about as you head into that first day of spring practice. Unofficial visitors start this weekend. Not a big weekend for Texas at all. LSU, monster weekend in recruiting. But so we have a lot going on next week towards the end of the start of that spring practice for Texas. Around the 22nd is the high school coaches kind of clinic day there. And, so a lot going on, Blake. We got, senior night in basketball. Saturday, yeah. Senior day in basketball coming up as well. And it's such an interesting game. Texas and Oklahoma there at the Moody Center. It's really a must-win game for Oklahoma. And Texas is if DSU doesn't play and they lose, then it gets interesting in the Big 12 tournament. So both these teams right now aren't necessarily on the bubble. If Oklahoma loses to Texas, they're for sure on the bubble, probably in a play-in game. If DSU's out, which I expect, and I mean long-term, nothing's come out for sure. If Texas loses, though, Saturday loses the first round of the Big 12 tournament, I'm interested to see what the committee does with the Longhorns in the NCAA tournament. If they don't think DSU is going to play, if that ends up being the case. So we'll see what happens there. And obviously, Blake, baseball is going to try to rebound starting conference play.
Yes. Baseball and softball both open up conference play. Texas heading to Lubbock. Haven't won there since 2018. Won a series there since 2018. Of course, we'll get into all of that here in just a little bit. But let's jump up. By the way, good morning, Coach Shipley.
Morning, guys. How are y'all?
Doing good. How are you this morning?
Do what?
I said, how are you doing this morning?
Oh, I'm doing good. I was sorry. I was a little late this morning. I was doing a deep dive with my Manscaped. So.
All right. That's all right.
Well, look at Oscar's checking in from Pelham, Alabama. Boy, enemy territory for sure after last year. Woo. And now heading into the SEC.
Yeah, man. A lot going on in recruiting as well. Once again, you posted a lot of stuff yesterday on ontexasfootball.com. What's the latest there?
Yeah, just that visitors list continues to build. We have some recruiting questions we'll hit on here a little bit later. I just put out a little best class scenario on ontexasfootball.com. More my opinions on this one, on some players where, about 29 guys looking for Texas to sign 24 of those. That'd be a fourth straight top 5 class, kind of the scenarios people like to talk about right now. But yeah, it's that official visitors list continues to build for June 14th, 16th, and 21st through 23rd. All the quarterbacks will be on campus in 25 to 26 targets in April. Those are all locked in now with Troy Hune out of Mission Hills, April 6th, Jared Curtis out of Nashville, April 13th, Will Griffin out of Tampa Jesuit, April 13th. So, a lot going on, both as far as official visitors, unofficial visitors. Texas took the day off from offering guys yesterday. I think, March 5th was the big offer day as far as defensive linemen. I spoke with Dylan Battle out of Mansfield Timberview, the D lineman there. He'll be at LSU this weekend with a bunch of other guys. But he talked to Kenny Baker a little bit this week. Nothing set up official visit-wise. So we'll see if something happens there. But with Zion Williams on the 21st through 23rd, Ethan Utley 21st through 23rd, Brandon Brown the 14th through 16th. We're kind of waiting to see when Josiah Sharma is going to make his official visit to Texas. But a lot going on in recruiting as always.
Well, I want to talk about two things real quick before we move on here. Number one, we got some trivia questions for here in a little bit, where we'll be giving away a couple of Shipley Ranch hats courtesy of Coach Bob Shipley. Got to thank him for that. And I think I did pretty good with the trivia questions. Nothing too easy by any means. And then number 2, I'm going to go ahead and let the cat out of the bag, Jerry. On Sunday evening on the Longhorn live stream, you guys are going to have a special guest. I want you to tell folks who that's going to be.
Well, that is the last Heisman Trophy winner at the University of Texas, Ricky Williams, will be on Texas football Longhorn live stream Sunday night. That shows from 7 to 8. So I literally can't wait for that. I have so many questions for Ricky Williams about, high school football, college football at Texas, NFL, just all of it. So Ricky's going to come on there Sunday night. Hey, by the way, Jay Dobbs had a great question, Coach. If he gets both questions right, does he get a Shipley Ranch?
Well, I don't know. Usually you buy a ranch and you get a hat free.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't know that it would work the other way.
Okay, so that answers the question. If you go 2 for 2 in trivia, you don't get a ranch.
You get 2 caps.
You get 2 caps. So.
Oh, man. Well, before we move on, fellas, I'm going to go ahead and let everybody out there know about BKCW, and then we'll get to some questions. But if your business has had a frustrating insurance or employee benefits renewal, then most likely you didn't hear from your agent all year. And then right before it was time to renew, they delivered the bad news of a rate increase. When this happens, the agent's providing no value and you're stuck in what we call the insurance trap. BKCW takes you out of the insurance trap by providing you with actual risk assessment consulting, not just price quoting. Operating out of their headquarters in Austin, Texas, and owned by a UT graduate, BKCW uses a 5-step process to identify your business's weak spots, design a plan, execute it, and monitor your situation throughout the year so that you can lower your insurance costs and effectively manage your company's risk. BKCW has already helped some of the most well-known construction companies, restaurant groups, breweries, and nonprofits in Central Texas escape the insurance trap. And it all starts with that free risk assessment. So go to bkcw.com or send them an email to info@bkcw.com to get started with that free risk assessment or claims audit and escape the insurance trap. We want to thank them for sponsoring each and every Friday right here on.
A lot of ideas now. Too broke to pay attention says, can you get a Shipley horse if you get both questions right? If it's not a ranch.
A Shipley what?
A horse. Hey, next is going to be like the miniature donkey. People are just going to keep going down and down and down.
Yeah. Let me tell you, if anybody tells you they're going to give you a horse, just run very far away.
That's going to have a lot of veterinarian bills, right?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Just don't take a free horse, whatever you do, or a free boat.
Or a free boat.
They're both going to probably put you in bankruptcy.
All right, well, let's go ahead and dive into some questions, and then we'll do a trivia question here in a little bit. But I want to knock this basketball one out of the way for you, Jerry, from Antoine. He says, do you see Texas going after Liam McNeely?
That would have to take a big change on both of those fronts. The McNeelys very much see Liam as a one-and-done player, which I very much disagree with. And that was a big part of the recruitment. And I just don't think that was going to work for Texas because that sets unrealistic expectations for a player that's not going to be a one-and-done player. So I'd be very surprised if that moved anywhere.
There you go. And then let's go to this question from Kyle. He asked, what does edge look like in this class? We'll go ahead and move on to football.
Yeah, well, Texas has an edge that throws 95 off the mound to start. Lance Jackson, committed to Texas from Pleasant Grove. Hit 95 on the radar gun on the mound this year already. I haven't checked in with him lately, see if he's pushed 96 or 97. But Lance Jackson, I was at Pleasant Grove a few weeks ago. Just a tremendous looking athlete now. Just moves so fluidly. Runs in the 4.6s at 6'5", 260 in that range, 255 in that range. Obviously, his brother Landon, Texas will go up against at Arkansas this year, is really turned out to be a good player for Arkansas after some early health struggles in his career. But Lance Jackson's one. Then Damian Shanklin from Warren Central is going to come in June 21st through 23rd for an official visit. I think Notre Dame's a pretty big leader there over Tennessee and Texas. Texas has some ground to make up, but look, they're going to Sark calls it deep sea fishing. So here we go. Get your big rod and reel and get on the boat. And not a boat you get given, but get on with the deep sea fishing boat. But I think that's where Edge is at. Cameron Morgan's a guy Texas continues to like. He's out of Red Oak that's now back at South Oak Cliff where he started his career. But there's a few other guys. Marco Jones out of California who's kind of that hybrid linebacker edge kid. There's a kid, Hayden Lowe, out of Westlake Village who remains out there in Sherman Oaks area, California. He remains in contact with Texas. He says he's coming in for a visit. So I think that's one position where it's still a little up in the air as far as who's going to be potentially the number 2, number 3, second, and third edge players in this class.
All right. And then David Williams, I don't know if you saw it when you were talking there, but he said, Jerry Hamilton, I've whined and complained for you and CJ to do a live recruiting show, but then I missed it yesterday. I still have about 100 questions for the
We're going to start doing more of those, David Keith. So we got you, man. And by the way, hey, somebody checked in from Rockport. Look, they will never have a better player than Dat Wynn come out of Rockport Fulton. I'll just go on record and say that. If they have a better player come out of Rockport Fulton than Dat Wynn, I'll be surprised. That guy was a hell of a player.
Okay, then this next question here is from Corey King. He says, good morning, UT family from Little Rock. Outside of Zion Williams and based on what you've seen, who would be your top 2 defensive tackle prospects?
That's a perfect time to bring up the video, Blake. Let's get it going.
I was using it to segue.
Yes, that's a great segue. Here we go. We're on our game today. All right, here's Brandon Brown, coach. At O'Galley, if you have any kids, you don't want them to watch this if they're thinking about playing football. Brandon Brown is the best D tackle I've seen in this class. Just the level of explosiveness he has. When we get to the 2-minute mark of this video, well, I'll just keep pontificating. It gets very scary for people. There's your one-handed interception. 6'2", 285, long arms for his height, really good feet. Just that power, quickness, power, explosive ability, naturally strong. He just ragdolls all these guys. He lives on the Space Coast, right? He's not playing against the greatest competition in Florida, but it doesn't matter. When you play this quick and angry, this guy's a dominant player at the defensive tackle position. There's a couple of plays coming up where you just literally I hadn't seen on a high school video before. And that poor left tackle got, I don't know if he's still playing football after that, the highlight video of this game. I think the quarterback's taking a knee here, or is it at the next play? But Brandon Brown, I think, is the best Texas is recruiting. He committed to Bo Davis. He's remained committed. USC, Tennessee, Alabama, everybody making runs at him. USC's one to watch. He's at Alabama today. That's more at the California Power 7-on-7. That team, they travel around the tournaments, and what they do is they take kids to schools every weekend, when they go out to these tournaments. The colleges that are closest to them. But you can see the effort level here. He's a tremendous 3-tech type. That's the first play. I mean, golly, that poor guy. Poor kid he went up against. It's just demoralizing at times. But Zion Williams is a tremendous over-the-ball prospect. He's at LSU this weekend along with a bunch of other kids. We'll officially visit Texas June 21st through 23rd. I'm a big fan of his. Ethan Utley out of the Nashville area. He's committing March 28th. I think a lot of people think it'll be Tennessee over Texas at that period of time. We'll see. He's got official visits to Tennessee and Texas in June. Let's see what happens with some of these guys from Florida now that Texas has offered. See who comes in for official visits. This is the play right here, Coach. You ever seen that?
No.
Have you ever seen a guy just pick somebody up with one hand and throw them down?
He reminds me of a 6'2" Puna Ford.
Yeah, that's a great call.
Quick off the ball, and will chase you down and make you pay. I see some Malcolm Brown in him too.
Yeah, exactly. So what essentially what Coach just said is a 6'2" Puna Ford's a first-round pick, and Malcolm Brown was a first-round pick. That's the level of talent this kid has. I've seen him in person. I went to O'Galley. It's there on the Space Coast of Florida and Melbourne area. I've seen him in person. I think Malcolm Brown's a great comparison, honestly, for Brandon Brown. Tremendous player there, Blake. Thank you for bringing that up. I think we'll let the poor offensive lineman I got to tell you. So, Coach, like in this business, when you walk up to somebody, as long as I've been doing this, when you walk up to somebody and they look you in the eye and they give you the death grip handshake, that like gets you a star up rating for me. You know,
no doubt.
I mean, Adrian Peterson still has the strongest handshake in my years doing this. I mean, my hand still hasn't recovered. But you know, those guys like that, and Coach will tell you this too. If you ever walk up to a quarterback and the first time you meet him, he gives you a dead fish handshake and looks to the ground, he's not your guy.
Yeah. I'm all for it. Anybody that'll come up and shake your hand like a man and look you in the eye is already one up in my book, because that's becoming a lost art.
For sure. So that's D tackle position. Texas has a lot of offers out. They have 3 guys coming in for official visits now. That list will grow probably up to 10, 12 guys here by the time it all fills. This official visits fill out. A lot of those guys will be on campus in April as well. So we'll see. That's kind of the next step with all these out-of-state guys. You got to get them on campus, as we talk about all the time. That first time, sit down with Kenny Baker, really meet him for the first time, spend a lot of time with Sark for the first time, then see who Texas feels like they have a legitimate shot at and what kids take that to the next step and set up official visits. But I think Texas is going to have a number of highly ranked defensive linemen, interior defensive linemen officially visit.
So let's move on here to the next question, and then maybe we can do one of these trivia questions after that. And there's been some good ones here. Let's do this one from Art. What freshman defensive player do y'all think will have a big impact this season?
I mean, Texas needs Colin Simmons too. He doesn't have to have an Anthony Hill freshman season because Trey Moore's there. But Texas needs that pass rush off the edge, Coach. I really think that Trey Moore, Colin Simmons combination, especially after losing the 2 big boys inside, whoever can create that edge pass rush is going to be key this year for Texas.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't know that there's a freshman that could probably come in and start anywhere else rather than up front.
Yeah, Xavier Filsaime at safety, I think will get a lot of time. He's off to a really strong start at Texas since he enrolled in January. He physically is ready for Power 5 football, having seen him in person last year and at the Under Armour game. Now it all comes down to, for him, how quick does this transition go in spring football? A guy like Cedric Baxter, really quick. Anthony Hill went very quick. We'll see how quick it goes for Filsaime. If it does, he'll be an impact player, even with Derek Williams going into year 2, Taff returning, Andrew Makuba, and some other guys working at safety.
All right, let's do the first of one of these 2 trivia questions.
If anybody gets these quick, they know their history.
Yeah, they do. Because I definitely did some research into these to pick some tougher ones for sure.
Well, I hope your questions are better than mine. My years of teaching was so fun. My bonus trivia questions: what famous baseball player was the Lou Gehrig disease named after? You'd be amazed. You'd be amazed at some of the answers that you would get from Hank Aaron.
Yeah.
Won't be quite that easy.
All right. I can assure you this one is somebody's about to earn a hat.
Yeah.
So what we'll do, I'm going to read it and post it up on the screen. The first correct answer in the chat is obviously going to be the winner. And the very first question is, in 1900, a vote of students, faculty, staff, and alumni officially selected orange and white as the university's colors. What colors came in second place by only 7 votes?
Here they are, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're going to see who's the quickest Googler.
Nobody immediately answered this. And I was like, we have one guess out there that's not correct. I'll say that. This is a tough one.
It is very tough.
My goodness.
We got okay.
Remember, we said colors.
Colors.
There we go. I think we got it.
Nope, we don't. We don't.
Nope.
Now we do.
There we do. Okay, there we do. So The answer.
Corey King. Corey King,
What?
831. Yes.
Orange
What?
and maroon.
Can you believe that? I could not
gotta
believe
be
that.
Kidding me. Corey King, you the man.
Yeah,
Can you
maroon.
imagine? Can you imagine
That would
orange
have
and
been my
maroon?
last guess.
That was my last guess.
I mean, I don't know that I can imagine a worse color combination, actually.
No.
No.
Like a dang caterpillar got smushed or something.
Good job. Good job, Corey King.
Okay,
Yeah.
Corey, Corey, get your address. Get your address over to Blake and we'll get you a hat in the mail quickly.
Yeah. So, Corey, what I'm going to do is I'm going to post my email right now in the chat. If you will just email me your address, I will send it on over to Coach Shipley, and they'll get that for you. So, we'll do another one here in a little bit, but let's get back to some questions here. And we'll do this one from about selecting Corey Kings again. We'll do this one from Black Wind. He says, what position do you see Michael Terry out of San Antonio playing at the collegiate level?
He's one of the more interesting prospects to me in the state. He's a guy, somebody posted in the chat, he's hit 10.7. I haven't seen a FAT, fully automatic time for him yet. If he hits 10.7 FAT at 215, 220 pounds, that will take his recruiting to the stratosphere this spring. I guarantee you that, being in this business 2 decades. He's interesting because, I think receivers kind of what he wants to play. He doesn't fit the type of receiver Sark recruits. I think tight end, that flex speed tight end, that Amari Nyblack, Nyblack's a receiver that transitions the tight end. I think there's some similarities there athletically with Michael Terry. Some people like him as a safety that watch him play. You're 218 in high school right now as a junior. I mean, good luck staying under 230. That's going to be tough. So where does he eventually play? If you want to talk about his most projectable position, it's probably Amari Nyblack-ish and tight end for me. Linebacker, it's easy to say linebacker, coach. It's harder to play. To me, running back and linebacker are the most instinctive positions on a football field. And I know a lot of times we just like to say, guys, we can make him a linebacker and throw him out there because of his frame, but that's harder said than done.
Yeah, he's one of the more versatile guys that we recruited out of this class, and or are recruiting. And there are a lot of people that think, possibly a safety, type guy. I don't know that he'll be big enough to play linebacker, but you never know. I read a thing the other day that was talking about. Dang, my mind went blank. Kelsey was the brother that was a lineman, came in as a walk-on running back. Yeah. And so, you never know what's going to happen with the kid's future. But, dang, the kid's 6'3" and plays running back, and was a good running back. I don't know that he's got the quickness, to play outside or play running back, but he certainly is versatile enough that you take a chance on a guy like that, he can fit the bill in a lot of different positions.
Hey, Blake, I'll grab one. David Rawls is interested in Byron Washington cooling. That's the DeSoto offensive lineman who's 6'8", 400-ish pounds. Yeah, I think so right now. And he's got to watch his weight. He needs to take care of himself.
I'll do a couple more recruiting, and then we'll switch back to the team. E. Kim says, will the 2025 class have more Houston flavor than the past classes?
I think it's possible, right? Look, Texas is in some battles in that Houston area. I think Cade Phillips from Hightower is a kid who, look, if I was putting in a pick today, I'd put in a pick for Texas, pretty big over LSU and A&M right now for Cade Phillips out of Hightower, who, by the way, if you haven't seen it, long jump 24/7, first meet of the year. Ooh. As a junior in high school. Yeah, I knew that would get coaches' attention. Ooh. So he's got a shot at 25, which is a junior in high school. That's a massive number. You're getting into Roy Williams from Odessa Permian. Obviously, Goodwin was an Olympic level guy. But once you start getting, you start butting up to 25 feet there, you're in a pretty elite category of football players who long jump. So, that one will be interesting. Kobe Sellers, probably an OU lean over Texas, but I do think Texas can win that recruitment. Jonah Williams at Galveston Ball, OU lean, but told On Texas Football we broke that news a couple nights ago. He's visiting April 6th and will come back for a June official visit. So, look, I mean, we'll see what happens there. Jonte Newman, the offensive tackle out of Bridgeland out in Cypress. He plays for former Woodlands and Texas A&M defensive lineman Lonnie Madison's the head coach out there. We're actually doing a great job at Bridgeland, has tremendous offensive line talent in that program. But I think Jonte Newman, I could see Texas winning that. I'm not saying they are. I can see them winning it, though. He's a kid from Mississippi originally. Alabama could be a factor. Oklahoma and A&M are in it. But there's a lot of really talented players in Houston in 25. And do you count Conroe as Houston? I do, because I have to fight through the traffic to get there, and it just feels like a beating. So Dorian Brew at Conroe, that's as far north as you can stretch Houston. I think Texas has a legitimate shot at one of the top corners in the country. So there's a lot of talent. Obviously, then you have Fort Bend Marshall, the kids. A lot of those 26s are big-time players. So I do think you're going to see Texas sign more guys out of Houston in the next two classes.
And the next question comes from Living Rent-Free in UT. It says, Jerry, can you hit on Fahim Delane and Nathaniel B?
Yeah, there you go. Fahim Delane is a stud safety out of Good Counsel. I guess technically Our Lady of Good Counsel in Olney, Maryland. Big-time talent now. He's coming in April 13th. Ohio State, Oregon, Tennessee, Maryland. Maryland's got a fight on their hands to keep him home. They do win some of those. But Fahim Delane is a stud safety prospect, one of the best in the country. He's a guy that Blake Gideon went and spent a whole day essentially out at Good Counsel in January. So that tells you how highly thought of Fahim Delane is by Texas. So we'll see what happens there. After that unofficial visit, I exchanged some messages with Fahim 2 days ago, I guess. He doesn't have an official visit set up to Texas. We'll see what happens after the unofficial. The linebacker Boateng from IMG, look, I think Texas likes him. I think there's some guys, some other guys that maybe are really high on the board right now. But Boateng's a really good player. Gavin Nix was another kid at IMG. Texas had a junior day on the 20th. I'm not sure where those kids actually sit long-term with Texas right now. But, Riley Pettijohn, Elijah Barnes in-state, Matea out at San Clemente. Then you have Anthony Williams committed. You have Javar Thomas. You have Jonathan Cunningham in state. It's a tremendous linebacker year in Texas. And that isn't always the case. So Texas is going to have to win their fair share in state in this class.
Then we'll do one more recruiting question, and it's right up your alley, Jerry Hamilton. UT Tyler guy says, are there any solid kickers or punters out there that we're looking at?
I don't know if he's talking high school. I think he may be. I don't know on that. A lot of that, Coach Shipley can comment on that, how that kind of works. That kind of works around the Coles kicking camps and things like that. The three guys that really run all those kicking camps, then they kind of come in. There's normally a camp day in Austin in the summer where Jeff Banks and those guys, or whoever your current staff is, get to watch those guys compete and kick at Texas. There's normally a camp day there. As far as the portal, I do think there's a punter out there in the portal that probably has Texas's eye. If they don't take a punter in the portal, that tells you how much they like Michael Kern as a true freshman. I think the tough thing for Texas there, since Michael Kern at St. Thomas Aquinas, since he's not an early enrollee, if he was an early enrollee and they could really work with him, get a good look at him in the spring, it might make their decision easier not to go after a guy in the portal. I tend to think they may go after a guy in the portal and give Michael Kern a year to get ready. Hey, Coach, I don't know if you can talk about how the kicking camps go.
Well, I was just going to, if you're the trend nowadays, as you all know, is if you got a punter, you go get you an Aussie rules guy, or something. I'll tell you a quick funny story. Back when I was in charge of when all the freshmen came in, I was in charge of, getting them in the dorm, having a little orientation with them. And so we came up one of the first mornings they were there when Cameron Rising was a freshman out of California, who's obviously been the quarterback of Utah before his injury. I think he has another year. But
he does.
Anyway, I can't remember. Do you remember Michael Dixon's cousin that we signed that came over and punted? Didn't have, of course, the career that Michael had.
God, the name's on the tip of my tongue.
I can't remember. Anyway, he's standing there. He and I and Cameron Rising are having a conversation, and Cameron said, "Hey, Coach, I'm in Texas. I need to get some boots. Where's the best place for me to get some boots?" And so Dixon's cousin said, "You mean at the University of Texas they don't provide you with boots?" And I said, "No. Why would we do that?" I said, Cameron, if you want to get some boots, if you don't want to spend a lot of money, go to Academy Sporting Goods. They've got some pretty decent boots there. And hey, okay, work boots, whatever you want. And the punter said, I just cannot believe that you don't have boots at the University of Texas. Yeah, right. That's him. He said, I can't imagine. I thought the University of Texas had everything. And so we're like looking at him like crazy. Well, as it turns out, in Australia, boots are cleats. And so I'm at the University of Texas. You don't even give him, in his mind, he's thinking, well, you don't even give me cleats. I've way overestimated this program, and the money that's in this program. You can't even picture your player cleat. And so Cameron and I laughed every time we'd see each other. We'd make a joke about boots. But anyway, yeah, if you want a punter, you go to Australia. If you want a kicker, you call one of the three guys. And they've got a beat on these guys. I mean, these kicking gurus and these kicking camps, it's basically just like a combine for kickers. Yeah. And they kind of rank them, and you call one of three guys and put an order in for a kicker. Unless you've got a guy in your backyard, like Dicker or something like that,
That's awesome. That's a funny story for sure. All right, Jerry Hamilton, we'll tell everybody out there about Manscaped today if you're ready to do so.
Tell them. You got to hear it. I mean, you got to start with that, right? All right, guys, top of the morning to y'all. This is the last Manscaped read of the week. We're going to make it a great one. This episode's brought to you by St. Patrick's Day Shamrock Shavers Manscaped. This year, don't just chase rainbows. Make your own pot of gold and groom that little leprechaun with leaders and below-the-kilt care. Say goodbye to your clover forest forever. Not forever. You got to keep using Manscaped with Manscaped's Lawnmower 5.0 and let your confidence shine bright. Embrace the luck of the Irish and join the 10 million men worldwide and growing who trust Manscaped.com. Man, head over to Manscaped.com and use On Texas, all caps, for 20% off plus free shipping. Trimming the hedges in your Irish garden isn't just for below the belt. Complete your look with Manscaped's signature Beard Hedger Pro Kit plus Handyman Electric Face Shaver. Ever since I've used Manscaped, I can proudly say I found my pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Isn't it time you do the same?
Nailed it. Phenomenal.
I can't say I practiced that, by the way.
That's a tough act to follow. Oh, but we have to. So let's take some team-related questions here. And we'll start with this one. Too broke to pay attention. It says, good morning on Texas football. How much playing time do you think that Simmons and Zena will get this year? I have them penciled in as the two starting ends in 25, but I'm just curious on how their development is processed.
I think Zena physically needs some time he's got such a long frame. He was about 225, 230 at the Under Armour game in December. But you're talking about a guy 83, 84-inch wingspan. So I think a little time on that, Ethan Burke curve. I think he's going to develop physically quicker because he's been more football focused than Ethan Burke was, but similar frames, right? If Ethan's a little taller, but those frames take a little time to really get ideally where a coaching staff wants them. Colin Simmons, I think physically is about as ready to go as he will be. He's plus 20 pounds already. If he's 250 by August, 245, 250 is about where he will be. I mean, look, that's the same size as guys like Dallas Turner, Will Anderson. I'm not comparing him as a player. I'm just talking about frame similarities. Colin doesn't have the arm length necessarily Dallas Turner has, who I think is an 80.5 wingspan at 6'3". So, but frame size, those guys will be very similar, and Colin will be ready to go.
And then
I just followed up. Do you see Colin Simmons becoming a top 5 pick in the NFL draft when his time comes? I'll say this. He has first-round ability. It's up to these guys to all go maximize it. I mean, that's the whole key. If he maximizes his talent, Colin, in my years in this business, should be a first-round pick. He's that level edge rusher naturally. He's got everything you look for as an edge rusher, especially snap count anticipation instinctively. He's got a lot of that stuff, plus all the athleticism, the ability to bend. It's up to him to go get it done.
All right, our next question here is, and I just lost it. All right, Stark After Dark. Early thoughts on the Texas-Michigan game?
Ooh, Coach, I know. You got any early thoughts on that one?
Well, I think we're going up there at a good time. I mean,
yes.
they have depleted their roster for all practical purposes. In my opinion, I think it's going to be a good time. I mean, it's certainly not going to be easy going into the big house, and winning a game, but it's encouraging after what happened, and you saw the way that our team responded to the atmosphere at Tuscaloosa last year. And so, go up there with a chip on your shoulder and have a chance to knock off the defending national champions. I mean, of course, it depends on how, like everything else, how healthy we are. But I really like our chances going up there. I think it could really, just like last year's Alabama game, set the tone for the season. This one could be the tone setter for the 24 season.
I totally agree with Coach. And I see a lot of similarities with Alabama and Michigan. The timing, like Coach said, game 2 of the season. Michigan's going to be breaking in a new starting quarterback. It's going to be whoever it is, his second start of his career. All 6 offensive linemen were at the NFL Combine. They have to replace the entire offensive line. The tight end, Lovelace, is a stud. He's a first-rounder. He's back next year. They lost Roman Wilson's off to the NFL. Blake Corum off to the NFL. They lost a lot of talent. So I always like it when you go on the road against a blue blood opponent and you don't feel like they can overwhelm you with talent on offense. I think that is a good place to be. Like, could you imagine going into play in Tuscaloosa when they had the 4 first-round picks at wide receiver and Tua throwing the ball? That's when you feel like, whoa. I mean, they can overwhelm you offensively when you go play in their house. That you're not going to get that feeling with Michigan. That's a great place to start. Here's the other thing. Are all those defensive guys going to be back after spring football? With the spring portal, you don't really know. If both of the D tackles, Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, if they're back next year and Will Johnson sticks around, but really those 2 D tackles, they present an issue for Texas running the football. And how will Texas interior D line look against Michigan? Because Michigan is going to try to line up and run the football, especially early in the season, starting a new quarterback. But Michigan lost so much. They lost their scouting department too. I mean, that's a big loss, as it turns out. So they lost their scouting department, their head coach, who knew nothing about that scouting department, by the way, in case you ever missed that headline. Harbaugh knew nothing. And then he lost his entire staff, essentially. So it's a new staff, a lot of new players. I've said before, Colton Lovelace is going to be looking around in the huddle, not knowing many of these guys next year. So I think it's perfect time to go play Michigan.
Not to mention the fact that, with Coach Moore taking over there, it's not going to be the same. I mean, it's one thing to take over for a few games, but to reestablish the culture and bring up basically a new team together in just a short amount of time, one off season and the fall, it's a difficult task. And I'm not so sure, at least you've got, Alabama, you've got another successful head coach at the helm, but Michigan having an assistant coach, and I thought Coach Moore did a great job last season.
Yeah,
but he was on the phone with Harbaugh constantly, I'm sure.
That's actually made a bunch of Michigan questions pop up, so we'll just take some more of those. And let's start with this one from Tyler. He says, what do you guys think Michigan's defense is going to look like this year?
It depends on those 2 D tackles. If both those guys remain at Michigan, people are going to be knocking on that door, and Will Johnson, the corner, who's probably a future all-pro level guy. Look, the one thing about Michigan, they've evaluated extremely well. They've had a really good development piece in that program. They didn't sign 5 straight top 5 classes to win that national championship. They signed a couple of really good classes, a couple of classes in that 12 to 15 range. So they did, like Ladarius Henderson came on that offensive line from the portal from Arizona State. He played at Waxahachie in high school, will be drafted probably. So they kind of mix and match it all together, but they weren't the recruiting high school juggernaut that Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State have been. But so they have a great evaluation development piece. They're going to be really good on defense because they're fast, they're physical. They have the size on the interior to hold up. And I'm telling you, that young D tackle there, the Trey Pierce kid, who will be a sophomore next year, he's a future draft pick. He was out of Chicago, Texas. Bo Davis went up and offered him in his senior year, but it was just too late to get in on him at the time. But I'm telling you, they got some young kids on that defensive front that are really good players as well. So Texas offensive line is going to have to play very well in that game, just like Texas had to go in the Tuscaloosa and play well on the offensive line against all those future NFL draft picks at Alabama. So that, to me, that's the key. But it's hard to kind of gauge until we know, are any of those guys going to jump in the portal after the spring at Michigan? If they all stay, then their defense is going to be really good.
And that actually leads me to my next question from Too Broke to Pay Attention. Speaking of that, has there been any word on that at all? Any inklings, hints, whatever it may be?
It's all chatter until they do for me. I mean, let's see what happens when the spring window opens. My opinion is new strength and conditioning, spring practice coach, how all that goes, the feel those older guys that have 1 year left before they head off to the NFL, the feel those guys get from all the changes is probably going to dictate what they do. If they feel good about it, they'll stay.
And
Mason Graham is a guy I would take.
Yes, 100%. and Mason, by the way, Mason Graham is the guy that Johnny Nansen of Texas, he's from Anaheim Servite. So he's a SoCal guy, kind of feeds into those connections that Texas has on the West Coast and that footprint, and added more with Johnny Nansen coming in. Yeah, Mason Graham's a stud.
And then our last Michigan question from William A. Jones. How many do you think they will pack into the big house for that one? So the average attendance last year was 109,971 fans. I mean, I think that game sold out, don't y'all?
Oh, yeah, for sure. The key is, I don't know if it's out yet. Are they going to do their national championship celebration? Are they going to make it like make it their own ESPN game day, essentially, type of atmosphere there? I think that it'll be interesting to see.
Well, I think, you're probably looking at 100 and what are they, 115? That probably close to the record.
I bet it is. I bet it is the overflow.
Especially with us coming into town, I look for it to be close to breaking the record, if not. But I kind of hope they do a national championship celebration. That'll be somewhat of a distraction for the returning guys.
Exactly.
Now, we do have a few more that have come in. I just didn't see
Wait. We missed an important question, though. If Mason Graham's at Texas, does he get to go out and get his ring? Well, we'll talk about that in May or something.
Tyler wants to know, will this Texas-Michigan game be the same kind of caliber as Texas-Bama from this past year?
I do think it will be. I think it's going to be from an atmosphere standpoint, maybe not all the way, but I do think it will be. I mean, I don't know if College Game Day, if people are already saying College Game Day is going to be there, I'm guessing they probably will without looking at the schedule that far ahead of time. But I do think it's going to be from an atmosphere standpoint. Absolutely. Big Bad Texas is coming in. The Blue Blood Michigan just won the national championship. It's a huge, huge game for both programs.
Happens to be the 20th anniversary of our Michigan victory in the Rose Bowl.
Yes, good point.
2004. That was a start of a pretty good run for us.
Yes, it was. Hey, by the way, 115,109. Britt Rasco said that's the record up in Ann Arbor. So the coach was right on.
Yep. And then Brendan, he does have a point here. It could be the big noon kickoff. Yeah,
could be. It very well could be. So, it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be one of those atmospheres. It's going to be one of the most built up games of the offseason, especially early in the season. There's not going to be one better from a TV viewing spectator, national audience, the way you can sell a game, no doubt.
And then we'll do one other Michigan question, guys, before we move on. And Mike G says, have they hired a defensive line coach? On their website, they didn't have anyone listed. That could be something to file away.
They're going to have to hire Mason Graham as player coach to keep him. I see. Smart staff there. Okay. I've not seen.
Yeah,
somebody, Sark After Dark has a really good question, by the way.
Jerry, will the new national signing date force athletic directors to fire coaches by Halloween?
I figure coach will have an opinion on this too. One of the things I've said, life isn't fair, obviously, right? We all know it, but things that are in people's control, like the signing period in December, really wasn't fair if you had a coaching change in college sports, especially once the portal window opened. I mean, if you fired a football coach at the end of the year, he has one official visit weekend, and the portal's already open when he has his press conference. I mean, the setup, the system, it just wasn't fair if you had a coaching change. And I know that the people who have great programs say, well, hire the right coach and don't ever have a downtime, right? It doesn't work that way. So it's interesting, Coach, now that it's moved up to December 4th through 6th. I mean, as an AD, are you going to see more coaches fired middle of the season?
I don't think so. I don't think you are, simply because there's no way you can have a replacement in place by the first week of December. I mean, if you did, it's a guy who's probably not playing in a conference championship or has a shot to make the playoffs. So I don't see it. It does kind of muddy the water a little bit on how, I don't know how they're going to handle it. I mean, who knows? But I don't think it will cause an increase of early firing, simply because what good does it do to fire a coach when you don't know who his replacement is going to be? Then you're truly in limbo.
Yeah, and I'll add this. You know what's crazy is with the college football going to 12 teams. Let's just say, for instance, Billy Napier doesn't make it at Florida. And I'm just using him because the first 2 years have been rough, and the schedule this year is the hardest college schedule I've ever seen in my life for a 12-game schedule. Let's say he doesn't make it at Florida and they have to go make a change. Then the guys you want, Dan Lanning, Lane Kiffin, they're going to be sitting there in contention for the 12-team playoff. They're not coming your way anyways. So this 12-team playoff is going to muddy the hiring waters even more for the power programs, because a lot of times when you fire your coach, you're going to be looking at some of those guys or trying to pluck one of those guys that's at the successful programs right now. So that's another piece to this that's going to be interesting.
Okay, well, I need to tell everybody out there about Chinook Seedery. And, man, a great sunflower seeds for sure. But baseball season is here, which means you have to have the essentials ready for those 9 innings of fun. And by that, I mean sunflower seeds. They're a must when it comes to baseball, and Chinook Seedery has you covered. With 8 unique flavors to choose from, you'll definitely find a flavor you love, whether you're taking them on a camping trip, to the ball game, or on the wide open road. Chinook has crafted the best tasting sunflower seeds on the planet, and their unique flavors are made from real foods and real spices. That means real Parmesan cheese, authentic hatch chilies, and freshly harvested dill. Whether you're actually in the game or watching it, grab a bag of Chinook. You can find them in your favorite store or go online to chinookseedery.com and seeds the day with Chinook. So they have awesome sunflower seeds. I love their Parmesan and pepper. But real quick, we got to do a baseball segment here, guys, as the Horns head to Lubbock to play against Texas Tech this weekend. It's the conference opener. Texas is obviously on a 4-game losing streak. Tech, though, they've won 7 in a row. I will say that Texas' competition level has been a lot stronger. Tech's pretty much played nobody on that 7-game streak. And when they have played good competition, which was a lot earlier in the season, they lost by a combined 16-6. So this is going to be the first true road trip for the Longhorns. And Texas, like I said earlier, has not won a series in Lubbock since 2018. Your starting pitchers this weekend for Texas: Friday night, you'll see LBJ. They're going to mix it up Saturday and Sunday, though. Saturday, Cody Howard, and Sunday, Charlie Hurley will be taking the mound. Obviously, pitching going to have to improve. Last weekend, they had a 9.69 ERA as a group, which is, just bad, unacceptable. Catching also going to be has to be a lot better. It's going to be interesting to see how they address that. And then offensively too. I mean, the top part of the lineup's been really good. The second half, though, a lot to be desired there. So Texas has a lot of question marks heading into Lubbock. We'll see how they address it. But that game starts tonight, I believe, at 7:00 there in Lubbock.
This isn't the second trivia question, but bring up Easton's 901. See how many people know this.
Easton,
because it's baseball tie-in.
Good morning from Drew Stubbs' hometown.
I know that one.
I don't know that one. I got a Drew Stubbs autograph ball behind me, but I don't know that one.
I'm pretty sure he was Atlanta High in Texas, but I could be wrong.
Now I got to Google it.
Somebody's going to know that. I think he's Atlanta High.
You're probably right. I'm looking, Jerry. It is Atlanta. You're correct.
Yeah, because when I went through there looking at football kids, I saw the picture on the wall. So there you go.
I'll throw in my 2 cents on baseball, which is about 2 cents more than I really know about it. But, you'd like to say Texas is, they're switching up their rotation, trying to figure out, maybe it's the rotation. It's not the rotation. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about baseball, but I know that when you're pitching that bad, I don't know that replacing one guy who's struggling with another guy that's struggling, your rotation is going to be the answer. But
yeah, a lot of question marks, Coach Shipley. A lot of question marks.
Searching for answers after last weekend.
Yes, and Tuesday. I was at a track meet yesterday, and I was wearing my Longhorn pullover, and I probably had 6 or 7 Aggies come up to me and talk about how they whipped Texas in baseball. People I don't even know coming up and talking about how they whipped Texas in baseball. So the rivalry is back as Texas heads to the SEC.
That's a funny when Tyler Rollo said there's an Atlanta, Texas. There is, man. 59 north on. If you're going 59 north of Marshall, man, you just keep going. You hit Jefferson, you hit Atlanta. I got to tell you, that area has produced some of the best football players in the history of this state. I mean, you just go up and down that 59, those small towns. We could talk about it for an hour. We don't have that much time, but, there's some big-time names. I mean, Jason Peters from Queen City is going to be a Hall of Famer. Billy Sims. I mean, there's a list of guys. Atlanta's Randy Garner was a tremendous high school prospect out of there in the mid-90s. Derek Blaylock obviously played running back in the NFL, a little bit out of Atlanta. His son, Torrey Blaylock's a really good 25 running back at Atascocita. But up and down, Jefferson High, Montre Holland. Montre Holland was so good at Jefferson High that Bobby Bowden came from Tallahassee to Jefferson, Texas. I mean, that's how good Montre Holland was. He played at guard at FSU and in the NFL. So that there is a ton of small school talent at 59.
And UT boy, thank you for the super chat. We definitely appreciate it. He says, hook 'em. So always appreciate that. And then Coach Shipley, this one's for you from Gary Smallwood. He says, hey, Coach, it was great hearing from Jackson. It was really awesome to hear him talk about memories playing for you in high school and also his involvement with his own boys. You have to be a proud papa.
Oh, boy, I sure am. I tell you what, Jackson is. I don't know that I could be prouder of a child than I am of him. He has got the best attitude, as always. Has always kind of been the forgotten one, in the bunch. But his senior year, he was coming off an injury that kept him out most of the spring and 2 days fall camp. And of course, that was the new staff that came in with Charlie Strong, and they didn't really believe in him. I guess he didn't play as much as he was unless it was third and long, and then needed a first down. They might put him in and throw it to him, but never complained, never griped. And what I'm most proud of now of Jackson is the fact that he is he's very driven to influence people and to speak at church groups, youth groups. He's had to overcome. He lost his mother very tragically a couple of years ago, and that has just fueled his fire for the Lord and for just spreading good and helping people overcome adversity and things like that. But he was dadgum sure fun to coach. I was a really good coach when Jackson was on the field. I promise you that. I got real dumb the next year.
Hey, Blake, somebody brought up Paris, Texas. Yes, Paris, Texas. Where people were talking about the cities and towns in Texas, but Paris, I got a funny one there. Is I ran into Coach, you'll appreciate, Alan Wilson at North Crowley a couple of weeks ago, who I guess now works for Texas UIL in some capacity, or Fort Worth ISD. I'm not sure which one, but we were talking about his time at John Tyler, at David Warren, how David Warren really changed recruiting in Texas, because he was the first Gatorade National Player of the Year from Texas, and how much that kind of started to change recruiting in Texas. About the time Bobby Burton and some of those guys were really getting big in the recruiting space as well, and took the recruiting to where it is today. But it was amazing stories to hear Coach Alan Wilson with that kind of that West Texas accent he has.
He's an Abilene Christian alumni.
Yes.
Snowball. Everybody called him Snowball.
Snowball. There you go.
See him today. You call him Snowball.
I'm sure I'll see him this spring. I'm going to do that. He'll be shocked. He was shocked. I just went right into David Warren's story, and he kind of looked at me, and it was kind of funny. And then I made him talk about the whole David Warren recruitment, how close that was between Florida State and Texas, which it was close until David went to FSU. Then it wasn't close.
We do have someone from Paris checking in, and then another one that's right down the road from me, Dublin.
There you go.
Another, but it's not. All right, it's the Dublin Lions. On that.
They got the landscape going in Dublin. Top of the morning to you there, you little leprechaun.
There you go. I love it.
I know. I told Jerry yesterday to do it in an hour.
Landscape read Monday. We'll bring him on.
Well, with that said, guys, we got to give away one more hat here. And this next trivia, or this last trivia question, I guess I should say, the first live mascot of the University of Texas wasn't a Longhorn. It was a dog named Pig. Who was that dog named after?
Somebody will get this quick. I wouldn't, but somebody will.
Boy,
These
my
are tough,
goodness.
man.
Okay, maroon.
Yeah.
And then a dog. That
Pig.
I know. Dangerously close.
I'm sure glad some of our forefathers had a little more sense than that.
Did Isaiah Stewart get that?
No. Nope on those. Nope on those. It's a person that it was named after, but we got to have the name. Tyler says, this is my first time hearing this. That's wild. It was mine too.
Yeah.
I learned a lot looking up hard trivia questions about the University of Texas yesterday. So there we go. I believe we do have the answer. And
Walker Krausen
came from Walker. That's correct. And he was, the correct answer is the football team captain at the time, Gus Pig Ditmore.
There you go.
So very interesting that the first mascot was not a Longhorn, Bevo.
You know what I've taken from this? A&M got all their stuff from the second place finishers at Texas, I guess. Falling in line.
So I'm go ahead, Coach Shipley.
I was just going to say, Blake, make sure you get his information, and we'll get him a cap in the mail. And you know what I'll probably do is just send you guys some caps, and y'all just do this every Friday and just.
Oh man.
And plus, I
don't know. I don't know that Blake. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be able to come up with this caliber of trivia. He's off the charts.
Yeah, these were. I never even thought about these things before.
Even heard either one of them, and so
I learned something today.
Yeah, I'm curious if Bobby would have known them.
No,
you don't think so?
No. In fact, we'll bring him up Monday for only Bobby to have a chance to answer.
There you go.
And if he gets both right, he gets a Shipley Ranch and horse.
Yeah, and maybe a free boat too.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, but yeah, I put my email address in the chat. If you'll send me your address, we'll get that forwarded over and get the hat to you. So, all right, guys, we got time for a few more questions here. And actually, Coach Shipley, one more for you from David Williams. He says, like all of Longhorn Nation, I'm proud of your son's accomplishments at UT and think they'd be stars of any era. But do you think they would be as good today as when they played at Texas?
Ooh, David, good question. Way to put me on the spot.
You want me to answer that?
Yeah. I don't think the game has changed that much. I mean, if you can run good routes and you have good soft hands and you're dependable and reliable and you can high point the ball and all that stuff, it's hard to keep you off the field. The only thing I wish Jackson would have had more opportunities to return punts. Yeah. He was a phenomenal punt returner. I don't know that he had more punt returns in high school than Jordan did. Jordan had 3 punt returns for touchdowns his very first high school varsity game as a freshman. But Jackson was really good. He had one at Gatesville one time that kind of and Abilene Wiley they were pretty impressive to me. But I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't know. I would like to think so, but who knows?
Yeah, I won't go too in depth on it, but I think both would be very, very successful. I think what did Jordan run? 10.5, 10.6 in high school, Coach? 10.6?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Both those guys would excel for Sark because of all the pre-snap movement, the ability to play all positions at the wide receiver spot, their versatility for sure. No question.
Hi, guys. Kelly Hyden wants to know, given how Texas played against Houston after the OU game, how can Sark make sure his team is emotionally ready for Georgia the next week? Obviously, this upcoming season, and it goes OU, Georgia.
I think that's pretty easy because if you play like you did against Houston, against Georgia, you're going to get your ass kicked. There's a big difference. I think it's going to be easy to get. That's not going to be a hard coaching job for Sark for Georgia. These kids have grown up watching Alabama and Georgia dominate college football. Think about how much that Alabama game meant last year. The thing you don't want is Georgia actually being the team circle on the schedule. But he won't have a hard time getting the guys up for Georgia.
Yeah, but that's exactly what's going to happen in the SEC, and we knew that. Yep. We know that you're going to have to be able to. Very rarely in the Big 12 did you have those back-to-back huge type games, and going to the SEC, if you're going to compete at the level that we want to compete at the SEC, you have to be able to bring it every single week and have an edge about you every single week, and not gloat in a victory or not pout in a loss. Yeah.
And by the way, the Georgia game, the reason you don't have any issue getting up for that game is your offensive and defensive lines. They know walking into that game, it's gonna be a trench battle. It's gonna be trench warfare. Those guys will be up for that game.
And I'm glad you said that about the line, because Naaman says Jerry always talks about the size of the SEC. Do you think when Texas steps on the field this year with our offensive line, the SEC might be a little surprised of our size?
I don't think so. I mean, because all these guys watched Texas, Alabama last year. They watched Texas in the playoff, and all of these staffs recruited these guys. I mean, Kelvin Banks was a national recruit. DJ Campbell, national recruit. Cam Williams. I mean, these guys were recruited by a lot of those programs. Were on campus at those programs. So I don't think so at all. I think that the one thing that might surprise SEC teams a little bit, I think, is how fast the Texas wide receiver group is going to be. I think that's the one area that may surprise SEC guys this year.
Hey, Blake, let me go back and say one thing about the Georgia game following OU. I would be a lot more concerned. I mean, obviously, we're all going to be concerned, but I feel better about it since the Georgia game's in Austin.
Yeah.
And it'll be packed and it'll be rocking just like it was Alabama in 22?
Great point.
Yeah, it's going to be rocking. And so We just have to take care of our business in the Cotton Bowl, and then you can play off the emotion of the crowd a whole lot better than the opposite of that, playing them for the first time, in Georgia.
Yeah. And I think it's great. Texas has the week off after Mississippi State, the first SEC game for Texas, the week off before OU Georgia back to back. I think that's a perfect off week time.
All right, y'all. This next question from Tom Rucker: what's the status of Colton Bosick? Have you heard anything there?
I haven't heard anything new. Just kind of that I think I'll be surprised if he's 100% for the spring, but I can't say whether he will where he's at for sure this spring.
And then one last time, fellas, I need to tell everybody out there about BKCW, and then we'll knock out the last couple of questions. But did your business have a frustrating insurance or employee benefits renewal? Most likely you didn't hear from your agent all year, and then right before it was time to renew, they delivered the bad news of a rate increase. When this happens, the agent's providing no value, and you're stuck in what they call the insurance trap. BKCW takes you out of that trap by providing you with actual risk management consulting, not just price quoting. Operating out of their headquarters in Austin, Texas, and owned by a UT graduate, BKCW uses a 5-step process to identify your business's weak spots, design a plan, execute it, and monitor your situation throughout the year so that you can lower those insurance costs and effectively manage your company's risk. BKCW has already helped some of the most well-known construction companies, restaurant groups, breweries, and nonprofits in Central Texas escape the insurance trap, and it all starts with that free risk assessment. So go to bkcw.com or send them an email, info@bkcw.com, to get started with that assessment or claims audit and escape the insurance trap.
Brandon, he was late getting in today. We're going to do some more trivia for Shipley Ranch's hats in the future.
There you go. And so, guys, we got time for just 2 or 3 more questions here. But Isaiah Stewart says, with all the changes in the NCAA, do y'all think scrimmaging an actual opponent for spring games will ever hit the table with obvious precautions in place?
Coach, I want your opinion on this because Bobby and I have gone back and forth on the show about this, but obviously I've never had a chance to ask you, and you've been in those coaches' offices. What are the thoughts? I mean, is that something that a Texas spring game against Texas State, for instance, could that ever happen? Would college coaches want that to happen?
Well, I don't think so, but I never thought you'd be able to openly pay athletes either. So I'm not sure I would be the one to ask on that. But I'll tell you, I think, this as well as I do. How many snaps did Bijan play in the spring game?
Right.
I mean, you want to, if you get through spring healthy, you sure don't want to, an ACL in the spring game is not going to make it back for the fall.
Right.
So I just don't know that you would see people want to do that for a game that's not going to count. But I'll tell you an interesting story. Back when Jordan was playing, they would go up and do 7-on-7 Monday nights, man. I can't remember what night it was in the summertime. And Vince and I think it was Gerard, the quarterback at A&M.
Gerard
Johnson, yeah. Anyway, they had got together and they were going to secretly have Texas and A&M was going to meet like in was it Rockdale? I kind of think it was Rockdale, maybe. Just secretly meet there on the field one day and one evening and have a 7-on-7 A&M against Texas. Wow. And I just thought, how cool would that be for a kid in Rockdale or Elgin or wherever they're going to do it, to be riding his bike past the football field and putting his bike down and standing up on the fence looking in and seeing Vince Young and, all those guys out there, nobody in the stands, nobody watching, playing 7-on-7. That would have been a kid's dream. But right before it happened, coaches found out about it and called it off. But that would have been pretty fun to be a fly on the wall at that stadium had that happen.
Jeff Carey super chat there, Blake, as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. To bring it up. Back-to-back wins over OU the next 5 days would be awesome. Jerry?
Big basketball game tomorrow for Texas. I mean, doesn't sound good on Dylan Dessou, but we'll see for sure. Must-win game for Oklahoma. They fall into that 10 seed bubble type, right where you don't want to be, because if you lose Saturday, then You're in that play-in game most likely if you don't get bumped out of the tournament. I don't know. I'm not sure they will. Their NCAA net's pretty good. It's in the low 40s. But Oklahoma comes in needing to win the game tomorrow against Texas. And obviously Texas, the last thing they want to have happen is lose out in the regular season. The loss the other night to Baylor, then Disu gets hurt, then you lose to OU. Then if you happen to lose the first round of the Big 12 tournament, in the NCAA, the committee's wondering if Disu's out for the year, does Texas even get in? You don't want to be in that scenario. So the crazy thing is, it's pretty much a must-win game for both teams. The other thing is, if Texas loses, you're 8-10 to end conference play. The loser of this game finishes 8-10. And I know one game isn't a big difference. You can get in the tournament at 7-11 and 11 or 8-10 and a couple of power conferences. But boy, 20 wins and 9-9 sure does look better if you're Rodney Terry in year one.
And thank you, Jeff, for the super chat. All right, guys, we'll do one, maybe two questions, depending on how long we talk about this first one. The Longhorn says the most important.
He needs to read Manscaped. All right, go ahead.
Yes, he does. Who is the most important second-year player in 2024 outside of Anthony Hill?
I know where Coach is going to go with this, I think.
Go ahead.
I'll just ask Coach if it's Malik Muhammad for him at corner.
Absolutely.
I'll let Coach go.
We've had too many conversations about that.
Yeah, I think Malik Muhammad at corner. I agree with Coach. That's kind of that corner spot needs to make a big jump here this spring. Not only starters, Terrence Brooks year 3, Malik Muhammad, Manny Muhammad year 2, but the depth behind it. And I was just thinking, I think that's actually a great question. Derek Williams at safety. I mean, he needs to start looking like, and I think he will, by the way. I think this is a given. And then he start looking like the guy that could be a first-round pick, like Sark and Michael Griffin coined him on signing day, which is so rare for a head coach to do at a signing day press conference. I'm not sure I've heard that before. But Derek Williams would be another one. And then you get to the names maybe you haven't been talked about as much. A Leonga Lafau at linebacker. Texas needs one of those young linebackers to really step up this spring for me. That position needs to shore up as well. So it's all on defense for me.
And then we'll do this last question, guys, from Mark. He said, we talk about players all the time. For example, what does Quinn need to do to improve? But let's talk about the coaching staff. In your opinion, what are 2 or 3 things that Sark could do to improve as a coach or the overall part of the staff?
I love Coach wants to go there.
I think self-evaluation is critically important, and I know for a fact that Coach Sark does that, and he gets input from his coaches. And a lot of coaches don't want to have to face up to some things but I'm telling you, he's a really smart guy. He's a really in tune with his players and with his staff. I don't think he's afraid to make changes. Thankfully, he hasn't had to do that. I don't know if he hasn't got rid of any coaches, I guess. So usually when you see a guy getting rid of coaches, that's a sign that he's like, okay, I strike one. Okay, I know I got to get rid of this one first, and then you got to get rid of a coordinator, and then you're out of a job, But I think he's really in tune with where the team is at, and will do whatever it takes. I love the staff. I love the coaching staff. They're people that he trusts that can come in and have difficult conversations with him. And I've heard him come out and publicly admit some things that he needs to improve on. And he's the first one to tell you red zone is the thing that we've got to improve on, certainly offensively. And defensively, obviously, that those concerns have been well documented as well. But I just love his honesty. I love his openness, and how plugged in he is with his players and his staff.
Yeah, I think Coach hit on the 2 things for me that Coach is 100 spot on, and Sark says this. Self-reflection in the off season. What can I do as a head coach? What can our staff do to take the next steps as we ask the players to take the next steps. And that's one of the things I like about Sark is how genuine he is in that regard. The coach hit on the two things I think we're going to hear Sark talk about is red zone and being a little more aggressive on defense. And because when you go to the SEC now, it's a line of scrimmage league, yes, but those receivers are fast. So if it's going to go hand in hand, you got to create pressure off your edges with your edges. And because if you can't, then your defensive backs are going to have a really tough job ahead of them at corner. So I think having a little more pressure defensively off the edge, that helps with talent coming in, Trey Moore and Colin Simmons. And then I think a little more aggressive at corners. I think these guys, I think they're better the closer they get to the line of scrimmage. The corners that are going to be starters at Texas next year, Terrence Brooks and Manny Muhammad, I think they're going to be better the closer they get to the line of scrimmage. So I think those are the areas you're going to hear Sark talk about headed into spring practice. Red zone offense, maybe number one, though, at the end of the day.
And guys, I know we got to get out of here, but I lied. There is one more question. I forgot to ask it earlier from ontexasfootball.com. And if you even just one player, Waddy7796 says spring camp is almost here. Which player has the most to prove? Do you see any surprise coming?
Sadir Mitchell, Dre Bledsoe, Alfred Collins. Texas needs those guys to take some big steps, especially Sadir Mitchell playing over the ball in the SEC. I mean, he's the guy that's 6'6", 340, that has first and second step quickness, that has length, that has a lot of ability over the football. He needs to really come on for Texas, especially, and he should be. This is year 2 for him. Dre Bledsoe, pound for pound, best athlete in the program. It's about his time that he finds that consistency. He's up over 290 pounds. So those are guys I really look at. Then Cam Williams, it's a big spring for Cam Williams at right tackle because you want, look, he's seen in Austin as a guy that's going to be an NFL draft pick and could be a high draft pick. I think it's important that he looks that way in Sark's eyes, Kyle Flood's eyes, coming out of spring practice, so there's no hesitation there. I don't know if Coach has anybody else he's thinking about. Those are guys for me.
Yeah, I'm not thinking about – I mean, we already talked about Malik, but I'm not thinking in terms necessarily of individuals as much as I am positions.
Yeah.
We talked about this yesterday a little bit. The receiver group, how's that going to shake out? Who's going to rise to the top? Who's going to be the next X? Who's going to be the next AD? Who's going to be our guys? We think we know who that is, but the thing I love about spring ball, there's always somebody that you weren't counting on that will make a move and go, wow, I didn't see that. Maybe they didn't have the opportunity. Maybe they have been developed adequately. Maybe they're overcoming injury, and I don't know who that's going to be. But there's always somebody that will rise up that you weren't counting on, and that's the fun thing about spring ball. We all know the names of the guys that we think we need to watch, but there'll be a guy or two that'll come out from nowhere and make a name for themselves, and that's the thing that I love to see, guys that see their chance and go pedal to the metal and make it happen.
Somebody asked, by the way, Blake, before we get out of here, who the first D coordinator was that Sark reached out to when he was hired. It was 100% Will Muschamp. Whoever said that in the chat is correct.
There you go. And then a super chat from John C. I don't know if he accidentally maybe super chatted us or what the deal is, but he says Bella 93.95. No clue what that means.
I don't know.
But thanks for the super chat, John C. We appreciate it.
He had a $10 bet that he could get with somebody that he could get you to say Bella, whatever.
He won.
Yeah, there you go. Oh man,
that's like the guy that went to Vegas and said that there was going to be a stripper at the Super Bowl or whatever. Bets on himself.
Bets on himself.
Oh man! All right, guys. Well, that's gonna do it for today's episode of.
Hey, Blake, show everybody that shirt you're wearing before the big games. Oh.
We'll see. Hey,
it's getting tougher. You're getting braver and braver to wear that.
I know. I'm glutton for punishment, I guess, more than anything. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's show. Head on over to ontexasfootball.com for more recruiting information, team news, and great discussion. Obviously, a lot of questions today that we couldn't get to. But if you head over there, get on the message boards, ask them, join in on the conversation, and we'll get as many answered.
And I want to remind everybody, Ricky Williams, Sunday night, Longhorn live stream, if you want to hear from one of the greats that ever put on the burnt orange and white, and not the burnt orange and maroon. The burnt orange and white, Ricky Williams. There you go.
Yep. And then we'll have, obviously, it'll be live on YouTube. And then if you do miss it, you can always go back and watch it. But try to watch it live. And I got us to give a quick shout out to Longhorn Football Edits for making us this graphic. Very awesome of him to do so. But yeah, 7 o'clock. Be there for that as you, Jerry, along with Bobby and Rod, will be sitting down with Ricky Williams. And also need to thank Coach Shipley for coming through with the hats for the trivia this morning. Thank you again, Coach. Appreciate it. And for joining us this week.
Yeah, I had a great time. I enjoyed hanging out with you guys. And we hadn't said much about it, but or I haven't said much about it, but if we can ever do anything for anybody in terms of land, shipleyranches.com. And you don't get, we don't even have a secretary. You're going to get me, Jackson, or Jordan. Probably all our phone numbers are on there, our email addresses, so we can help you with any of your land needs, shipleyranches.com. I have to say, I don't want people to think that we have several ranches that have Shipley Ranches up top with horses. We don't do that. Jordan has some ranches, but that's not what we're selling land for other people and finding land for people. It's not, we don't have a cow-calf operation as a family. Jordan does, but that's not what we're selling. Just a disclaimer there.
So be sure to check that out, shipleyranches.com. And yeah, thank you again, Coach Shipley. And thank you to BKCW along with Manscaped and Chinook for sponsoring today. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Ring the bell so you're notified anytime we post a video. And for Coach Bob Shipley and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you next time.